Hey, welcome back. It's the beginning of another bar prep season. Scores are coming out. There are a lot of celebrations and a few disappointments. And I get that. Take the time to grieve, to mourn, to set aside those things that you thought that were going to come true or come to fruition for you just for a little bit. Delayed is not denied, but you still need to give yourself some time to come to grips with what life looks like now. I don't recommend keeping expectations low because the mind works with a self-fulfilling prophecy of bringing to you what you keep repeating to yourself. So if your game plan is to not get your hopes up so that if you fail, you won't be disappointed, then you're probably actually creating not passing. But if you learn how to healthily cope with disappointment, which I'm not saying it's easy. I actually discovered for myself not too long ago that one of the emotions I feared the most was disappointment. When I would ask myself, what am I afraid of here? What bothers me so much about this situation? What's the real thing? It was disappointment. It was the fear of the actual feeling of disappointment. Some of us were raised with parents who had really high bars for us. And so it makes sense that you might have this ingrained fear of disappointment because when you're a kid and they look at you with those disappointed expressions because you got in trouble or you didn't bring home the right grade, it hits you a whole lot harder as a kid. Unfortunately, we carry that programming into adulthood. So here you are. So fixing your mind to not be disappointed is self-sabotaging unintentionally. I don't think there's any intentional self-sabotaging, but it is going to sabotage you because of the fact that your brain is a expectations meeting machine. And if you fix your brain in order to not be disappointed, that means you are focusing on failing. I hope that makes sense. If you're focusing on failing, your brain is going to produce failing. So learn how to healthily deal with whatever the bar score might be so that you can go all out for studying and preparing for the exam and give yourself a fighting chance to actually pass it. Okay. So one thing I found that is actually helpful, even though it wouldn't seem it, if you're someone who's trying to avoid disappointment, it would seem like this is like a setup. But what is actually helpful is to actually tell yourself how you'll be so excited to pass the bar exam. I'll be so happy to pass the bar exam. I'll be so excited to pass the bar exam. Because in those sentences, you're not saying, I know I'm going to pass or anything like that. You're just speaking the truth. I'll be so excited to pass the bar exam. But the operative words in that sentence is pass the bar exam. And that's what you end up saying repeatedly to your brain. And that too is an automatic, ingrained, self-fulfilling prophecy function. Your brain keeps hearing, pass the bar exam, pass the bar exam. Your full sentence is, I'll be so excited when I pass the bar exam. And your brain is getting that message, pass the bar exam. How you even discuss your future opportunities is determinative of those future opportunities coming to pass. So just a slight shift of words. If you change the words and it feels icky and gross and like unbelievable, back up a little bit to something that feels more believable. That's why I didn't say walk around telling yourself, I'm going to pass the bar exam. I know I've got this bar exam in the bag. Because for a lot of people, that is so unbelievable that you will actually kick up resistance. And that protective mechanism in your brain that screens out stuff that you don't believe. And we know this because there's some people that like flat out, the earth is flat. They are really good at screening out stuff that doesn't match what they believe. Your brain has this function. And so if you try to bring in an affirmation or a motivational saying that you really don't believe, you're going to feel the ick. You're going to feel the dissonance. So back it up a little bit to something that feels a little bit more believable. And that's why I say, I'll be so excited when I pass the bar exam. And even if you're saying it in a sad way now because you didn't pass just now, I'll be so excited when I pass the bar exam. That's okay too, because your brain is hearing pass the bar exam and it's going to put that command into operation, and you'll start seeing encouraging signs as you go along. So just find a way to turn your sentences into positive forward-looking statements. You don't have to lie to yourself about your prospects to pass the bar exam. You can just find a statement that feels true to you and use that statement in your everyday talk and in your talk to yourself. That being said, let's segue into how to get motivated to start studying for the bar or start studying for it again, whether you just took the exam or you've been out of the game for a while, or maybe you graduate in December and you want to go for the February bar, right? As of the date of this recording, we're talking September 11th. So maybe you have this thing where I know I need to get back into studying, but for some reason I'm not. Hey, I'm there with you. I traditionally take a break in August. It's my birthday month. I go gallivanting and celebrating and seeing friends that I haven't seen in a while. See, so you might or may not notice that I've gone in August, but I traditionally do that. And getting back into gear come September is a thing. So I'm going to share with you some tips that I use to help myself get back into gear, period. But also what I know helps bar takers who need to get back into gear after a disappointment. This is going to be important for you. So listen up so that you can get back into it. First, if you are someone who is hands-on, you really need to get in there, then the Bar Mind Reset is a program I have, you can look below, that will give you a workbook and quick videos to follow with, and you can actually apply what I'm teaching you so that you can get the most benefit out of it. There's a big difference between passive learning, you know this, passive learning versus active learning. So I'll teach it to you. But if you want to see the results in your life, definitely pull out your pen and paper or go down to the link and get the Bar Mind Reset. Do something that you can actually apply the principles and work through the questions in your head and get yourself going in a substantial, concrete way so that you can slide into bar prep. Right? So in the Bar Mind Reset and here, I'm going to go over some of the key questions you want to ask yourself and answer so that you can get to the other side of this slump-ish feeling. Okay. So first and foremost, putting away the past. So if you did fail the bar exam recently or not so recently, but you have a history of not passing it or pulling out of the exam before the exam date, postponing it, or you graduated law school and you just still haven't sat for it. If you have a history of stopping yourself in that way too, then you want to ask yourself a key question. And it's what's the downside of passing the bar exam? If you ask yourself what's the downside of passing the bar exam and you allow yourself to be honest, you will discover a host of things that you didn't even consciously acknowledge that you're afraid of. So one client, when I asked her this question in a private coaching session, there was resistance. Oh, of course there's no downside. Why would there be a downside? You're working so hard to achieve something, the brain almost will not let opposite noise in. That's that dissonance again. If you're working so hard to be a lawyer, you don't want to dwell on why you wouldn't want to be a lawyer. So in a safe space, like a coaching space, you could start exploring and playing with that question. And you'll see, yeah, the lawyers I see around me, they work really hard. They seem to make money, but they're not happy. They're not spending their money to really better themselves. Even when they go on vacation, they're working. And I don't think I want a life like that. Or you could see the level of responsibility. Oh, am I going to mess up someone's case and they end up suffering grave consequences because of my actions or my lack of expertise? Or you could think of that would make me the main breadwinner in my home. It would shift the dynamics in my relationship. It's going to be individual to you, but you need to dig into that question to find out if there's any reason. It doesn't have to be legitimate. but you need to find out if there's any reason why you might be self-sabotaging, pumping your own brakes without even realizing it. It's the thing that comes up and makes you switch answers at the last minute, erase your correct answer and switch it to another one. A lot of people are like, oh, that's second guessing, that's fear of getting it wrong. And it is, it could be that too. But then there's a part of you that works through that fear of getting it wrong in order to make sure that your relationship doesn't change or that your work-life balance doesn't go haywire. It hears your fears and it works to protect you. So if you could find out what those fears are, and that's probably the hardest part, is just pulling them up from the unconscious mind, then you can set about saying, there's a plan for that, or there are books about that. Let me talk to my spouse about that. You can actually solve ahead of time for those things that you think would make being a lawyer difficult. Okay. One person went through the Bar Mind Reset, or maybe she just downloaded from the link below. And then she came and had a quick 15-minute chat with me. I put links for quick 15-minute chats for free in the description. So I put links for free 15-minute chats with me, one-time deal, but you get to talk with me and find out what's going on and if you're going in the right direction. And we had one of those chats, and she had just been using my downloadable things and maybe buying a thing here or there, but relatively all low-cost tools. And she told me how much of a difference answering that question made for her, because she didn't realize that she was afraid of being inundated and overwhelmed by trying to practice law while raising her daughter on her own, and she herself had some documented disabilities. When she asked herself that question, she saw, oh, I'm afraid of not being able to make it as a lawyer. And then just being able to voice that out loud then helped her go, but wait a minute, I've come this far with all those same restrictions. And look at all of what I've done. There's nothing that stops me from figuring out my accommodations, figuring out what the schedule is going to look like, basically figuring it out when I'm an attorney too. I've figured it out every other step of the way. And that was it. She passed her exam. No problem. So it could be the smallest thing or the quote unquote silliest thing that's stopping you from passing. So if you're in that space right now where you're trying to gear up to pass the exam, but you don't feel the motivation, just ask yourself that question. What's the downside of passing the bar? You might discover those fears, be able to solve for them, and actually feel a weight lifted from you to allow your motivation to now come to the forefront, okay? Because right now, fear might be keeping it down. If you are in the camp of people who took a bar and failed it, you need to recover from that. Then you need to ask yourself this question: what am I making this failed bar exam attempt mean about me? And that's a loaded question. Again, a question that a lot of people will shy away from, but you're brave. You're going to do it. Write it down and ask yourself, what are you making it mean about you? And when you come up with a surface answer, you're probably going to talk about your life. My life is put on hold. Or you might talk about everything but you. But the question is, what are you making it mean about you? So the answer is going to sound like it means I am, or it means I can't, I won't, I will never. It means something about you, about who you are as a person, about your life prospects, about whatever. If you make failing the bar mean that you will never have a full life, you need to know that. You need to consciously know that's what I'm making it mean about me, about my future, about my life, right? Because once you know that, you can solve for it. Most of the mindset issues in this bar exam arena is not knowing what the culprits are. Once you know what the culprits are, literally, they are Googleable. You can Google the answer to how to fix this. But it's getting to where you can find out what the culprits are. That's usually the hurdle. And these videos are designed to turn on light bulbs and make you aware of some investigations that you might conduct in order to move yourself past some of these culprits, these hurdles, right? My workbooks are built like that. My videos are built like that to just make you aware of it. Because once you start thinking about it, you'll go, oh my goodness, This is what I believe. Now, in the rare case where your mind thinks that this belief system is good for you, it's kept you safe all these years, it's kept you out of harm's way, or it's kept you from being the target of a mean girl or whatever, your mind will think, okay, this is a healthy fear to have. It's kept us safe. We're not going to let him or her dismantle it. So this is your mind now starting to work against you. When you're caught in that situation, then you will need outside help because your mind will literally run circles around you, trying to get you so overwhelmed and confused as you try to answer those questions because it has a vested interest in you not changing for the very reason that you believe something bad is going to happen if you change, right? So if you have a fear of passing the bar exam because you fear it will break up your marriage, for example, the part of you that's invested in your marriage is going to say, X the bar exam, she cannot pass this bar exam. And when you try to ask yourself, what's the downside of passing the bar? Your brain will think of everything except the marriage part because it doesn't even want you to start solving for that. It doesn't believe that there's a positive answer on the other side of that question. So it won't even, you'll just be blinded by it. And it'll be someone on the outside that can say, you said a couple of times something about the dynamic in your marriage. And could that be a thing? Like, do you think passing the bar might affect your marriage? And then because you're in a safe space and you're on the spot and you can't distract yourself with a television show or some chips or whatever, you have to answer the question. You're in the coaching session. You might go, I never thought about it before, but yeah, it could XYZ. And then it comes to the forefront. But that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because then you can solve for that problem. Okay. So ask yourself these tough questions. And you might, or the other, what does it mean about me that I haven't passed the bar exam? Or what's the downside of passing the bar exam? Sit with yourself, journal about it, let that stuff come up. Don't journal about it just once because you could be in that camp of people where the mind is trying to protect you from the truth because it thinks that you're going to mess up your life by digging in too deep. And that's another reason why I encourage you to do mindset work before you start studying, because it's really hard to do this stuff alongside studying. It's this thing where your mind could decide, no, she's digging too deep. We don't need her to start looking at this. And your mind could make you exhausted and make you have to go to sleep or something. And if you're trying to do this mindset work while you're trying to study, you could end up reducing your available supply of energy and bandwidth. I always recommend people start their mindset work before they start studying, at the very least. And if you can't, or you just ran into this video and you already started your study season, then you want to get yourself the highest level of support possible so that you're not trying to tough through these questions on your own. Okay. So get yourself a journal about these questions. Sometimes I do journaling on my phone's notepad and revisit the questions again in a day or two. Maybe you'll be more open to deeper answers about it so that you can move past the momentary motivation block that you have and you can move yourself into, I'm ready to study and I'm so excited to pass this bar exam, right? Look out for the next videos coming in. This month is going to be all about motivation to get into it because by October, if you think you're taking the February bar, you need to already be in the books by October. I promise you, you do. And in the next video, and in the next video, I may very well reveal why. See you then.